You're listening to Out of the Box Podcast with Rosie Tran. Out of the Box is sponsored by hugmetease.com. Spread love, give a hug, hugmetease.com. Guys, as always, we love our positive comments. Please go on itunes.com/out of the box podcast and click on the subscribe button and also leave a positive comment. I recently was talking to a fan this week who said that he loves listening to the show, but he only clicks on guests that he likes or that interest him, and he listens to the podcast. Well, guys, I have to tell you this, that unfortunately some of the more famous guests are not always my favorite guests, and sometimes people that you've never heard of are actually pretty amazing, including people that I've stumbled on and, didn't know how the interview was going to go, and then they were totally awesome. And that's why if you click on the subscribe button, you'll get every single episode, and you can discover new and interesting people that maybe you didn't think you would download that episode. So let's be a little bit open-minded and see. Sometimes the bigger names are a little bit more boring than I'd like them to be. So click on the subscribe button. That helps us out a lot. I am here this week with actor, comedian, and now producer of the Faith Film Festival, Joseph Neibich. Joseph, how are you?
I am excellent. I'm excellent, working my tail off, but things are really going well for me right now.
Good. So let's talk a little bit about this film festival, which will be launching next year in 2016. I saw your Indiegogo video, and it's very interesting because, I have felt that way as well about, the just untapped. It seems like Hollywood is kind of goes against common sense when it comes to making money, and I'm not really sure why. So what are the statistics that I'm talking about that you bring about with faith-based films?
The thing about faith-based films is they always seem to, or at least ones made well, quality faith-based films, they always seem to outperform films with similar budgets. There haven't been that many recently. There's only about 20 to 25, and that's kind of stretching it, that were made well. And if you're looking at studio films, maybe 5 or 6.
You're talking about films like Passion of the Christ and, God is Not Dead and films like that, correct?
Well, when it comes to studio, I just mean things like Passion of the Christ, Noah, like the really big movies. And Passion wasn't even a studio film. That was straight independent, but it had the studio talent and the studio money. And it made so much money. And then if you look at the independent films like God's Not Dead and Heaven is for Real, they're shot for 1 to 3 million. And again, they just make so much money. It's something people really want. And there's so many writers and actors and so much talent that wants to make them. It's just for whatever reason, it's kind of they seem to be looked down upon in Hollywood.
It's crazy because so many actors and actresses, you see the Oscar presentations, and I think pretty much like 90% of entertainers thank God as the first person that they thank in their Oscar speeches. And the same thing with sports. Whenever you see someone get a Heisman Trophy or win the Super Bowl, they say, oh, I just want to thank God first, then family, or whatever they say. And I just think, first of all, this fuels a lot of conspiracy theories from the right wing and other people saying, oh, well, Hollywood, Illuminati stuff and all this other nonsense that I don't subscribe to, about Hollywood kind of having this anti-Christian conspiracy theory. I don't know if that's true. I just think that because they're, faith-based films can include all faiths, not just Christianity, correct?
I agree. If you saw Eat, Pray, Love, it was a great movie. It was a really well done, and it was a studio film based on an amazing book. If it hadn't been based on such a successful book, it may not have been made, but it had Julia Roberts, James Franco, so many talented people. It was shot so well. And it was basically about how this woman who was stressed out by American life embraced Buddhism and meditation and religion to turn her life around and find, a fulfilling love life and a fulfilling work life all in one. They didn't package it as a film about embracing religion or Buddhism. They just packaged it as a feel-good film, a movie about a woman who finds herself. But it was so good.
And it's weird because there is a high amount of feel-good type films. Obviously Disney loves putting out feel-good movies and other studios. But I think that there is some type of stigma with associating a religion or a spirituality. And I just think that's absolutely silly because, it's such a huge part of people's lives. And I'm not sure why that is, other than the fact that, it's just a taboo subject still in our society, which is absolutely silly. It's the 21st century.
I agree. I think there's a couple factors at work here, and they're factors that didn't really used to come into play because in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, religious films were huge. Whether it's Ben-Hur, the Ten Commandments, there were so many big. In fact, I would say a very high percentage of the tentpole films back then
We're
were
faith-based.
religious. Yeah, they were, and now people try to write it off as like the studios are run by Jews, like there's some crazy conspiracy theory there. But I think it's more about people not wanting to. Nobody wants to offend anyone of any other race or religion or culture, and they think by promoting a faith-based film somehow they could offend everyone who's not part of that faith. And it's just, I mean, I'm not Buddhist, but I loved Passion. I mean, I loved Eat, Pray, Love. I thought it was amazing. Wasn't offended at all. I wish everyone would embrace their religion that way, regardless of your religion.
And I think that promoting various different religious beliefs, whether they're Christianity, Judaism, Muslim, whatever, Islam, it's actually showing and humanizing, because a lot of religious turmoil still exists today, and it comes from the fact that people do not understand each other's culture and religion, and it's oftentimes very demonizing. Um, they have interviews with people from Israel and Palestine, and the way they describe the other is very, as if they're savages, instead of realizing, hey, these are people just like you and me. So I think that showing different aspects of various religions can actually decrease conflict instead of increasing it. And this sweeping under the rug of faith-based film or faith-based thinking, in fear of offending people, is actually making things worse. And I think that you're absolutely right. You've hit the nail on the head that there's this fear of being sued or offending someone or whatever, and it's just silly.
I agree. Like with Passion of the Christ, Mel Gibson, who has a really bad name now, but at the time, he was a devout Catholic, and he told the Catholic version of Passion of the Christ. And a lot of people came out and attacked him because they thought it was racist and xenophobic because he wasn't showing all the views. And it's like, look, it's one story. You can only do one version in your movie. If you're writing a book that's academic, you can cover every version. But if you're looking at just one story, one film, make your version. And if you don't like it, then raise the money and make your own movie. That's my you know? You can do whatever you want, and you hit the nail on the head when it comes to religious tolerance. I mean, I used to work at a Persian company, and there were a lot of people who were Coptic, a lot of people who were Muslim as well, and I didn't know anything about the Islamic religion outside of basically what I saw on television and things I'd read. And in college, I always thought it was a beautiful religion. There wasn't really a stigma back then about terrorism and all the stuff that's going on now. And when she would tell me about her religion, when Amy would talk about it, she would always say, it's the religion of peace and happiness is this, and it was just like it really opened my eyes to what they really are and what they really represent, as opposed to what, unfortunately, we seem to see on the news over and over again.
Well, unfortunately, negative headlines sell, and there's been psychological studies done that negativity actually stimulates certain parts of the brain that put us into fight or flight mode, which obviously increases ratings and makes people, addicted to these types of ridiculous news stories. But there also tends to be a radicalization of religion, as for what I've seen. I grew up in the South, very Baptist, very Catholic. And, the people that I knew, there were some people who were like religious nuts, but most people I knew were just good people who just had a faith in God. And what I noticed is that there seems to be a radicalization. When they show Christians now, it seems to be associated with right-wing fanaticism. When they show Muslims, it's associated with terrorism. Does that make sense? There's it's very extreme instead of just showing, a normal person that believes in God.
I totally agree. It's like our media is now driven by it went from real media to sound bites, and now with the internet, it's all mouse clicks, and it's just, unfortunately, I find myself doing the same thing. I know when that goofball West Baptist church guy when he was going crazy, I would click on those articles. And I wish I hadn't joined the crowd and done that, but it was so,
It's so easy to do, right? Because, like I said, there's these psychological studies that we're kind of trained and brainwashed to do it.
yeah, it's so sensational. It's like you got these heroes who went to fight for their country. They're being buried, and you've got this nut job just disrespecting them. And and that's just not my experience of what religious people are like. I mean, most of us, I mean, truth be told, we've kind of got one foot in and one foot out. You know, like we embrace religion when we're having bad times or life is going well, and sometimes we don't always embrace it. That's normal. That's what normal people do, and we really all want to be good people. And religion, regardless of what it is a tool for that purpose, to live. You know, it gives you a framework to live a great life, to live just a powerful life, and a life where you're good to other people and you spread things like peace, joy, and happiness. And
It is, and that's what the core of most religions is, just regardless of what the religion is. I've studied many, many different religions, and the common thread, they're very similar. It tends to be, yes, they have the ridiculous, chapters in the Old Testament that say you can stone your wife to death, but obviously there's also other chapters and other stories in almost every religious book or text that says, treat your neighbor like your brother or sister, treat everyone in a good way. And so it's just kind of crazy that it's been radicalized so much. But I see that, especially in the media, and with Christianity, I see that, if you're Christian, you're now also associated with being right wing and also a gun nut, which is, those are not related.
yeah, they didn't even have guns back when that book was written. It's crazy. If and you touched on like the unity of all religions, and there's a book called The Essential Unity of All Religions, and how they all are preaching the same things about loving your brother and being good to one another and walking just a good path in life that will lead you to a more fulfilling, powerful life where you can touch other people's lives and inspire them to do the same thing and find salvation, whether it's in this life or the next, like whatever religion,
Whatever you believe, or if you're reincarnate or whatever, if you believe, you're saying
it's,
whatever it is, it's pretty positive, right?
and so many of the religions, they all come from either the Krishna or Zoroastrians, where I'm not saying that this is what everyone believes, but so many of the Christian stories and myths and legends, whatever you want to call them, whether it's Islam, Christianity, Judaism, and even some of the Eastern religions, they come from these people who lived in India and the Middle East. So there's a reason they're all so similar, but even ones that are dissimilar, like Confucianism, they preach the same thing. And so
They
many,
do. They do.
yeah,
Taoism and Buddhism. It's all the same. It's basically, be a good person.
it's just not
And
personified
exactly.
and yeah, that's what I love about it. And I think a big part of what's demonized about it in this country, unfortunately, is the stigma of the cheesy televangelist from the 80s and 90s and 60s and 70s. Those guys like Jimmy Swaggart and what was it, Tammy Faye, and I don't know if his name was Jim Baker. I can't remember his name, but
Well, I can't remember, but it was like one of them, and he was running like a scam or like trying to take money from people or something. And I understand. Look, I understand. There's charlatans out there. There's people who are trying to take advantage of those who are weak. But that doesn't mean that all religion is bad, and that's something that really bugs me. I'm a recovering atheist, and when I was an atheist, what I was missing was I was coming from such a place of judgment. In my experience of, I'm gonna say 100% of atheists I've met, unfortunately, is a lot of judgment towards religion, and that's exactly what religion is trying to teach us, not to judge others. And this is kind of personified right now with the crucifying of Scientology. I don't know much about Scientology, so I can't go into detail. But what infuriates me is just the crucifying of it and the judgment of it from supposed, from a lot of atheists, but also from supposed other, Christians or whatever. It's like, look, that is their belief. Let's just let it alone. I don't understand this dragging through the mud of it. I'm not a Scientologist. I'm just going to say that, and I don't know much about the religion, but it seems to be being dragged through the mud and just vilified, and I don't like that being done to anyone's belief system, whether I disagree with their belief system or not.
I agree. I agree. And I don't know a lot about Scientology, but I remember I got to Hollywood and they are pretty, they're not that aggressive with the way they promote their religion, but they're out there. They advertise a lot. And I remember I heard all the gossip and I just believed the gossip because I was young and I just believed it. And then I worked with a guy at the Beverly Hills Hotel. His name's Jeremy. He was a Scientologist, great guy, very intelligent, very, very intelligent, because they always try to like stigmatize Scientologists as being these,
Idiots, wackos, right?
yeah, like zombies who are like somehow hypnotized by a Svengali and the celebrity. and, uh, and he was great. He was fantastic. And we had a couple conversations about religion, and I was just like, I just let it go like that. And at my age now, I don't like when people start to spread negativity. That's when I question their motives immediately. But when I was younger, I fell for it. And
Me too. And that's why I really want to, and I'm not bashing atheism, but I just feel that a lot of atheism is the same side of religion. You're just believing the opposite, which is very close minded. I actually think agnosticism is the most open minded way you can think of things because you're saying, I don't know if something's out there. I believe there might be something out there, but I don't know. And I think that is the most open minded belief system you can have saying, hey, I don't know. Right? Because that's very open minded. But to say I do know and there's nothing, you're basically as close minded as the religious people you are so called saying are so close minded and judgmental because you're doing the exact same thing, but you're just doing the opposite of it.
I agree. I agree. I completely agree. And I think, there's the old joke. It was called Pascal's wager, where if you believe in religion, there's, you could go to heaven or, it could be completely false and nothing could happen. You've wasted your time. But if you're an atheist, if you don't believe in religion, nothing's going to happen. But if there is a religion, then, then you're out. You know what I mean?
And I understand some of the points of view. Some people say, well, I don't need a religion to live a moral compass. And that's fine. But, to stoically and adamantly say there's nothing out there and I know that there's nothing out there, I just think it's very, very egomaniacal in a way because, again, agnosticism is is sounds similar, but it's not. It's very open-minded because you're saying, I don't know. I don't know. Who knows? Right. But it's a good point.
Even if there's no such thing, even if I live the rest of my life and whatever, it turns out I was
wrong or whatever.
At least I lived a good life and people liked me and I did some good in the world and I just used it as a vehicle to live a clean life. And you don't need it, like you said, but
you don't need it, but believe in something, have something as a faith, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a religion. You can believe in humanity and you can be a humanist. Mm-hmm. But, just to say I don't believe in anything, I think that's a bit close-minded. But I really like what you said about Scientology because I also did the exact same thing. I was very judgmental towards it. I moved to LA and I thought, oh, it's a cult or whatever. And then I actually took a really awesome personal development class, self-help class. And I found out that my self-help class was on a Christian cult watch list. And it was like totally not a cult. It was just like a self-help class. And I was like, okay, so if my self-help class about learning how to become a better person and learning about psychology is on this Christian cult watch list, maybe Scientology isn't all that bad. I don't know anything about it, but maybe it's not, it's just like people make certain judgments and they don't know anything about it.
Yeah. And so many of those, what are they called? Group therapy courses, whether it's Landmark or Mindspring, they actually borrow a lot from some of the things that, L. Ron Hubbard put in Scientology because I went to an introduction just out of curiosity. I don't know, it's been like 15 years ago, but then later when I did, like I've sampled so many things in terms of just trying to be a better person and be more effective in what I'm up to in the world. And I saw so much of that introduction in some of those organizations, whether it was EST or Landmark and other institutions like that, even NLP, which again is in one of those organizations where so much of that technology is borrowed by everyone else.
It is. And I have I have a friend who's a recovering Scientologist. He's actually a Buddhist now, and he said, it wasn't for him. He went through, I think, a couple levels or whatever they call it. He said it wasn't for him, and now he's a Buddhist. But that they did offer a lot of self-help tools to help people, and that it was not what the media and what South Park and what all these other things were saying it was. And again, he left the church for his own personal reasons and decided to be Buddhist. But I don't know where these. I haven't seen the documentary. I just want to kind of defend it because it just seems like the easy thing to do is to just bash it. And if there, whatever ridiculousness people feel is in Scientology, there's just as much ridiculousness in other religions as well. Bill Burr has that joke. Oh, the first time I found out it's in his new special about Scientology. I thought, I can't believe they believe this, and this. And he goes, then I believed, he goes, then I realized I grew up believing that this guy walked on water, turned, water to wine, and, a virgin gave birth. So he's like, okay, it's all kind of silly, but also, every religion has some aspects of that. So I just don't like when something's being bashed so harshly.
Yeah, I
But
grew up in a Mormon community. I'm not Mormon, but I would say 80% of my hometown was when I was growing up, and they get a lot of negative attention because of
the stereotypes with Mormonism or the stigmas, right?
yeah, there's about far less than 1% part of this like radical, what are they called? The alternative Church of LDS, and he's the guy with all the wives, and they're
All these radicals ruining it for everyone.
and all my friends out in LA, they're like, oh, Mormons are, they had all these stereotypes. And I was like, no, they're really nice people. I mean, I know when my dad died, they were so supportive. I mean, they made sure I stayed active in sports and school. And when my mom had to go back to work, all the neighbors like made us dinner for like, I don't know what it was, like a good 12 months until she could stop. What was it? She was working while doing night school. And until she got out of night school, we had like 5 neighbors making me and my brother dinner like every night of the week. Like they
Did
were
you did you ever do that Mormon comedy club in Bakersfield when you were doing stand up a lot?
no.
So there was this awesome Mormon comedy club. It was just like a 1 or 2 nighter that I did. I think it's like closed. And it was run by a Mormon family. It was the dad. He owned the club, and then his wife like ran the door, and his kids would set up the chairs and wait tables. And I was so paranoid when they booked me because I was like, okay, I'm obviously not a clean comedian. They looked so Mormon too. Like they were dressed, very conservatively with like sweater vests on and all this stuff. And I thought, oh my God. And they said, just do your thing. I said, I don't have to be clean. They're like, just do your thing. And they laughed so hard at some of my dark and like evil stuff. They were like so awesome. They just had a really great sense of humor. And it just broke that stereotype for me that they were like, judgmental, like closed-minded, like in some type of cult with like 20 wives. You know what I mean?
So many of the young people, and when I say young, like anyone under 40, like even 45, like they grew up with the same media as us, and they don't care about your sexual orientation or your race and things like that. And I know in the old days they did. It was like codified that they were, like up until the mid 70s, African Americans weren't allowed in, and they were homophobic. Unfortunately, that still persists in certain areas of it, but they're so open and they're such great people. And I know, like, the way they take care of their people, if you're unemployed or broke, like, they'll give people housing, they'll send volunteers over to help elderly members of their church. Like, it's amazing what they do for their members. I think they're really nice people, and I hate listening to people bash on them.
Well, let's talk about your film festival. So what gave you the idea to start this film festival?
I've always got like different entrepreneurial ideas. And a couple years ago, I was talking with a producer named Todd Slater, who worked for Phil Anschutz, and he's done probably 20 movies. And we were trying to put together a Christian film. And at the time, I was not all that religious, but I really liked the idea of this movie, and it just made sense. And we were talking about festivals, and it's like you said, it was really tough to get in. And I was like, maybe we should start one, because a friend of mine had just started another film festival, and he was doing really well with it. And he's like, that's a great idea. He's like, we talked about how much money I would need to get it off the ground. And then I kind of let it go because I was like, there's other stuff I'd rather be doing. And I started working with a new investor about, I don't know, 2 years ago. And every time I turned around, I would meet these great investors who loved me and they would want me to run. Like I'd pitch them movies and then they'd offer me a job running one of their companies. And I was like, I don't want to run your company. I don't want to start a gold company. I don't want to run an internet company. I don't want to invent things. And this one guy, I took a call. We were traveling to a meeting with my investor, and I took a call from someone else, and I was talking about the festival, and he really liked it. And he's like, "How much would it cost to get it off the ground?" And I was like, I threw out like just a random number. I was like, I think this ballpark would work. And he's like, "Well, how much like just to get started? Just like trying to like raise that money." And I was like, "Well, we can go after corporate sponsors, which I think would work, which has, and we could try like an Indiegogo campaign as well." And he went for it. Like I was just like, I'm not even pitching you, and you're writing me a check. And it just makes so much sense to do. And we've got like the crowdfunding didn't really work, but most festivals, film festivals, they don't crowdfund well. So that was something that we just kind of we were doing at the same time as all of our other fundraising activities.
Hmm.
And we've gotten so much corporate support that I wasn't expecting because Hollywood seems to be staunchly against faith-based films. So when we went out to corporations, we were like corporations love to support film festivals, but we didn't know how they'd embrace a faith-based film festival. But we've gotten really positive results. Like our grant writers are just doing gangbusters when it comes to raising money and getting people attached. Like the success has been beyond what we were anticipating. And yeah, we're excited about that. When it comes to the crowdfunding, it didn't really work so well, but nobody wants to support. It doesn't seem like they want to support a festival. They want to support films,
Hmm.
which do really well on Kickstarter. Festivals don't really. They're lucky to raise like 5 to 10,000, which is not enough to get it done. So, but the corporate support we've gotten, I mean, from family companies that sell like family items, like whether it's food or snack items, to alcohol companies, like they're all wanting to be associated with us, and we're not like Sundance yet. We're not the Toronto Film Festival. I think we will be, and I think the future of our festival is going to be very bright. I mean, just talking with me and my partner and everyone we go out to, everyone seems to think we can be as big as Sundance and Toronto and Cannes simply because no one else is doing it.
Hmm. It's a
And there's
very
such a
niche market,
huge,
even
yeah,
though there's a huge demand.
something like 120 million people go to church every weekend. 17 million go to the movies. If we could just get a fraction of those people who are religious enough to practice their religion, to kind of see what we're doing, there's no reason there couldn't be one or two faith-based films every weekend coming out.
Well, this is similar, and this is similar and different, but this is similar to the movie that just came out that was Oscar nominated with Bradley Cooper. Even though it was a military film, but they were marketing to the segment of America that's not being marketed to, and that's why it was such a success.
Hmm. Yeah, it's true. Like I live in Arizona now, and I'm starting to do stand up again, booking a few road dates here and there. There's not a big African American population in the Phoenix area, but there is a population. So a lot of bands that cater to African Americans, whether it's hip hoppers or whatever genre of music, R&B, jazz, they tend to skip Phoenix because it's not, Atlanta, it's not New Orleans, it's not New York, it's not Chicago. But the ones that come, they always sell out because there's such a lack of content for that audience here. And it's really they're doing themselves a disservice by skipping the town because there's so few acts that cater that market. The ones that do come sell out.
And this beautiful film festival is going to be in Hawaii.
It is. We're going to be in Kauai. We may do the first year in Sedona. We haven't decided, but based on what we've raised, we should be able to set it off in Kauai, and then we're actually looking to expand the festival and have one in each continent within 5 years, and ultimately have the same faith-based film festival in every major city around the world, where we just kind of celebrate films about religion for their communities. Like down the road, we anticipate there being a lot of films about whether it's Buddhism, Taoism, Christianity, Catholicism, Islam, Hinduism, and just being able to, just showcase and celebrate films about those religions. And we're not promoting religion. We're not trying to be missionaries or anything like that. We just want to do films.
And you're not promoting a specific religion, which is very important distinction.
Yeah, we're definitely not doing that. In the beginning, we're gonna try to fund as many festivals and films based on, if the donor says he wants to do a film based on this, that's what we'll do. But we're not going to cater to any one religion unless that's earmarked in the donation. But we're excited. Like, we think we can be in every major city around the world and give people a chance to celebrate those films. And I think eventually we'll go from, one studio film every other year and 2 to 3 $1 to $2 million films a year, of which maybe one will be good. And they're usually, the quality on the lower budgeted stuff is usually not as high quality as independent films made by established production companies. Like Little Miss Sunshine had great production quality for a low budget film.
Yes.
The production quality on some of these other films just isn't as high as that, yet they're outgrossing them and outperforming them. So we think as more and more get made, better and better producers, better and better directors, better and better talent will be making them, and their box office results will be even more impressive.
So what about submissions? Have you been getting submissions already? Are there actually films out there that are needing to be seen, or is it kind of like if we build it, they will come type of thing?
It's a little bit of both. We don't have an official submission date yet, but I've started getting, like, the contact information's out there, so I've started getting emails and links and things of that nature. But we're waiting to put the website up to start accepting submissions, because we have to build the team of people who are gonna, filter through the first round of submissions, and then we've got a loose structure as to the categories we're gonna have. But in the beginning, it's kind of like the beginning of the Sundance Film Festival. You look at the films that opened the festival back in the 70s, and they weren't always the greatest films in the world, but they needed content to play the festival. And that's kind of where faith-based films are at this point in history. Like, there aren't a lot of great ones being made, but when you look at what Sundance did for independent film, just 15, 20 years later, by the late 80s, it was packed with good films. And now it's nearly impossible to get a film into Sundance.
Now it's actually, Slamdance is supposed to be the new Sundance, because Sundance, before you could discover an unknown, now it's like all celebrities, right?
It is. It is. And that's what I love about Slamdance. And we're hoping with Faith Film, we can develop something where there's actual 2 to 3 movie channels, cable channels, not only in the US, but abroad, that are showing faith-based content, and not like these other Christian networks where so much of the content is about raising money for the network and religious, and like the Tammy Faye Baker types. Like, we want it to be just good content, not one sermon after the next. Like, we want it to be about making just good content that people can sit down and watch without being preached at, without being asked for money. We just want the content to support the channels.
Now, a lot of people don't understand what a film festival is. A film festival is a place to showcase new films, but it's also a buying market.
It is. It can be. Sometimes it's only one, sometimes it's both. Usually the famous ones like Sundance.
People are going there to purchase independent films for mass distribution, right?
Yeah. And it's like most festivals usually are markets. Some are not. But like AFM, the American Film Market, it's not a festival. It's just a straight market. Same with MeFed. We want the festival in Kauai to be both. And then down the road, the festivals on other continents We have deep relations in Hong Kong and Seoul as well as the Philippines. So we'll probably have one in Asia that's also a market, and most likely one in Europe as well. And ultimately, we'd like to have something in Dubai or Abu Dhabi as well.
Are you concerned about certain countries having issues with religious freedom? I know there's actually a huge underground Christian movement in China because in certain areas it's illegal or frowned upon to um, be a Christian. I think there was a story on NPR talking about the underground Christian churches in Asia. So is that something that might be an issue or?
It's definitely something, we have to be concerned with, especially in certain countries, like China as well as in the Middle East. So because I see, you see these videos of people watching movies, even in Sweden, where I guess they portrayed something about Islam that offended people, and these people started throwing all their snack foods at the screen. So
I
we don't,
haven't seen this. Is this online?
yeah, you totally Google it. Like people, I forget what happened. It was something just like a woman was wearing the wrong clothing or something, and they just were violently protesting that anyone who practices their religion would ever do that. And it's just like, well, you live in Sweden. Like, what? I don't know. I haven't been to Sweden, but I've been to Denmark and Germany, and it's not that different the way the people dress and walk. You know, I couldn't believe what these people were. They're so fanatical. So I think, like in Asia, I think we're going to be better off being in a country that really is practices tolerance, like the Philippines or even Tokyo or Seoul. It's just more definitely first world, but a capitalist country where it's just there's freedom of religion and there's tolerance of in that nature. And maybe we just do it in Kauai as well in Asia. And when it comes to or even Australia, when it comes to the Middle East, maybe we do it someplace like Istanbul, where that's very modern, that's very Western, or maybe we do it. I don't even know, Malta. There's places we can go, or Cyprus, where we can be more protected. And maybe we're being a little paranoid. You know what I mean? But it's a
Okay.
concern for sure.
It is a concern. It is a concern because as you're saying, many people of faith, are positive, great people, but then there are fanaticals and there are people who um, give certain religions a bad name because they take certain things to offense or they take things a little bit personally, and um, that's not specific to religion. There's also people who are atheists who get very offended and take things personal and other things. But you're saying with this specific, avenue of using spiritual or religious films, faith-based films, it's a concern.
Yeah, I mean, of course it is. I'd be lying or I'd be lying or naive if I said it wasn't. But we think we can find ways to do it right, and we're unfortunately it is a festival, and it's the type of thing that's going to give a radical a platform to attack,
Hmm.
especially once we become established. So we just have to do it. We just have to do it the right way. And I think when people see what we're doing, they'll embrace it. I think they really will. And maybe we shoot that in some place like Bangladesh where there's not as much, ethnic violence, or even Sri Lanka where, we're protected, and we definitely would work with the local government. Abu Dhabi and Dubai are our first choices. And if they embrace the festival, hopefully they can provide us with the protection that we would need to do it right. Because we know 99.9% of the people, in fact, 100%, are going to be supportive and not do anything crazy. But then there's that outside influence where, I mean, you watch the news, like the crazy things ISIS is doing to people, throwing them off buildings and doing this and that, where it's just a concern.
It just makes me sad that, and it's something that's, happened throughout history, but the few, kind of ruining it for everyone. And that makes me sad. I just want to know, you said when you were sitting with your friend and he was pitching this Christian film idea to you and you kind of got the idea for the film festival, and then you're going about and talking to people and kind of not pitching but getting money. I mean, do you feel that you were being divinely led? You weren't spiritual or that religious at the time, but it seems like something is guiding you. What are your feelings about that?
I'm not saying that, it's a calling or anything of that nature, but it's funny. The more I get into it and the more I promote the Facebook page and some of the other press that I'm generating to get out there, the more positivity keeps coming to me. Like it just feeds it. It's kind of snowballing because in the beginning, I was just, it wasn't just another idea to make money. It was something that I thought would really do good in the world as well as generate an income and another business entity I could run. And then it's just become so much more. It's like I'm getting a lot of interaction on the Facebook page, a lot of private messages from people saying they want to see more of this. And the more I expose myself to that sort of like,
And this is without any major marketing at this point, correct?
correct, like we're just basically going out to corporations with a history of supporting festivals as well as faith-based projects. And the more I view this stuff, the more YouTube recommends it to me, and the more Facebook recommends it to me. And instead of sending me, pictures of these Instagram models who are,
Selfie models.
who are half naked in all their photos, and Lord knows what they're doing on the side to make money, I'm getting, friend recommendations of people and organizations that are all about supporting people and helping people. And the media that I'm exposed to
It's a
is
lot
so
more
much,
positive, right?
yeah, it's very uplifting. Like there's like this woman in Japan who has I'm going to call it a fox farm. I don't know what else to call it, but foxes were endangered over there. And she adopted a few, started breeding them and feeding like them and letting them run wild. And now, like, they're using this woman's fox. Like, her fox farm has like a couple hundred of these foxes. And she didn't know how she could afford to keep feeding them. And the next thing you know, tourists started showing up and paying her money to feed, to buy like, I don't know, dog food or fox food, whatever it would be called, to feed these foxes, and then they're being reintroduced into the wild. And it's just stories like that that just keep. It's like it's so nice to be reminded that there are good people out there who are just dedicating their lives and making the world a better place.
There are, and I think sometimes it can feel like the world is a mean, ugly place, and there is a lot of positivity out there. And so I think I just want to acknowledge you for really, trying to do something positive for the world because, I always say that that's just what we need more of, and I hear a lot of people sitting back and making judgments about negative and positive, but then not taking any action to create a positive wave in, a ripple in the ocean. So, even if I'm wishing you all the success with the festival, but even if, nothing happens with it, you're getting the word out there, you're getting interest. So to maybe pass the torch to someone else, ripples are being made that will be waves later, I think.
I agree, and I think that's the important thing. It's not. It's like when you're in elementary school or junior high, and you get that experience where we've all been bullied growing up, and unfortunately, some people never learn how to deal with it. But when you have, especially if you're not very big, like I wasn't the biggest guy in the world, and even if you are, there's always a kid that's 3 years older than you that's way bigger than.
That like failed or something, right?
Yeah.
He's in your grid for some reason.
And it's that experience of standing up to the bully that just gives you the confidence to be strong and be a man out in the world. And by doing something that's positive, so many positive things start coming back to you. And I know just in my life in general, I was kind of down for about 4 or 5 years there. And then in addition to the Faith Film Festival, so many great things have started happening for me. Like so many artists make a living as an artist for a couple years, then they're not making a living, and they get all depressed about how they have to work this job or that job. And that's unfortunately, it's the majority of artists out in LA. I mean, a lot of people make their livings at it. They're blessed and so lucky to be doing it. There's so many other people who are just as talented who just
For
aren't.
whatever reason, they're not, doing it full time or whatever, right?
Yeah, and they've got a good head on their shoulders, and they're good people, and they're putting positive things out there. It's just there's only so many slots, unfortunately. And since I started doing this, started booking a lot more work. Road bookers started calling. A couple bookers started calling me, and I started doing a couple road dates and doing a lot of clubs around Phoenix, of which there's like 6 comedy clubs now, and so many great things. And like I found the kind of that side business that I could work and make a good, decent living in addition to being an artist, which so many people are looking for that job that is 20 to 30 hours a week that pays all their bills while they can pursue what they love. And like somehow I stumbled into it. I don't know how. I was just talking to someone at a restaurant. The next thing you know, I'm doing this side thing, and I got an old friend who was a broke actor when I met him, but I was always good to him. He's a hedge fund manager now, and if you told me he was going to be a hedge fund manager, I'd be like someone telling you some random at an open mic was going to wind up being a hedge fund manager. I think that's how out in left field it is, and he's helping me finance stuff. And I met someone at an NLP seminar who's a hedge fund manager as well, and he's consistently investing in my projects. And I've got a production company I've optioned several reality teasers to, and I think I'm going to get a show on the air that way. And a couple different investors who are looking to finally put some money into a movie now that the economy's heading in the right direction.
Uh-huh. Um, so how can people support the film festival or, get the word out so you guys can raise some more money?
You know what? Go to our Facebook page. We are most of our donations are coming from corporations, but we love individual donations as well. And just PM us there, and we're gonna white label our own crowdfunding platform, and we'll find a way to accept donations through that because we're not a big fan of Indiegogo.
Okay.
I mean, it's a good platform. It's just not really set up for festivals. But we plan to have it on our website very, very soon, and to start just doing stuff that's gonna paint religion in the positive light that it deserves to be painted in.
It is. And, I really think that you're doing a good thing because I always get irritated when, the media does focus on the negative instead of the positive. If a basketball player cheats on his wife, it's all over the news. Yet how many hundreds of basketball players are faithful to their wives or vice versa? You know what I mean? So you're actually putting the spotlight on something that is a positive side of religion. If I see another, joke on Comedy Central about how all Christians are crazy right wing gun nuts, I'm just gonna go nuts and turn into a gun nut myself because it just drives me crazy. It's like that's just not true. That's like saying, all Asians can't drive or whatever. It's just a silly stereotype that I don't even know where that came from.
Yeah.
So I think that's really awesome that you're doing that. And the Facebook page is Faith Based Film Festival or Faith Film Festival?
The Face Film Festival.
The Faith Film Festival. All right. And Hawaii is, supposed to be like one of the ancient motherlands. So it should be fun, right?
Yeah, I can't wait. My partner's been to Kauai many times, and just looking at the photos, like I've been all over the South Pacific, but I just never went to Hawaii because my best friend from high school lives in Guam, and it's a beautiful territory. It's just a beautiful island to live. It's very close to Japan, so all the tourists there are from Asia, and most of the population is Asian. It's like, I don't know, a third Chamorro, which is what you call someone who's native of Guam, and then the rest is almost completely Chinese, Japanese, or Filipino, and it's just a beautiful place. We would always go there, and he just had a fascination with the most remote South Pacific islands, whether it's Chuuk or Bali or Java. Just he would never want to go any place that was developed, whether it's Japan or Hawaii.
That sounds nice.
But it was great trips. But I was always, everyone you meet from America when they go to the South Pacific, which Hawaii is technically the North Pacific, but they always go to Hawaii, and I was like, I just want to go. I just want to go and experience and check out, Maui and Oahu and the whole shebang. And they say it's a really supportive community out in Hawaii, so I can't wait to get there.
That's great. So what's next for you?
My investor, he just financed a small movie for me, a small comedy. We're going to shoot it for about $500,000. So I'm committed to doing that through the summer, which is exciting to be able to direct and make a movie, which is part of the reason I went back to doing stand-up, because it should make me a little bit famous where I could headline, which, as you know, as a comic, you make virtually no money. And famous people can make a lot, or at least the clubs will bring you in. So I can't wait to make the film, and I've got some commitments from some of the actors I've worked with before. It looks like we're funding our first Christian film as well, which we should know a lot more about that by the end of summer. So by the end of the year, I hope to get both of those in the can, and then
There's my puppy barking in the background. As you guys know, Out of the Box listeners, she likes to bark at least once every episode.
we're excited though, and then I'm building the team that's going to run the festival for me. I'm going to manage it, delegate everything, and I can't wait till next April, and when everything comes to fruition. We're hoping to have our film edited by then as well. So we funded a $500,000 comedy film, which I can't wait to go shoot. I'm going to direct it. I've got a small part in it. We look to be funded within 2 months. Technically, we have the money. It's just we haven't transferred it over. So I can't wait to do that. And we've got another investor committed to do our first faith-based film, and we look to shoot that by the end of the year. And we are closing all of our corporate sponsors. It takes, unfortunately, with high net worth individuals, a donation is immediate. With a corporation, it takes 3 to 6 months.
It has to go through their corporate channels, right?
Yeah, they have a process on their end that they have to deal with, and which is great. I mean, it is what it is, but we should be fully funded for that, or at least partially, by the end of summer as well. So as soon as we do that, we're going to start building our team of people who are going to help us with the festival. We're still on target to launch in April of next year, so I can't wait to do that. And I'm starting a new web series as well. We haven't named it yet. I'd give it a plug, but if it had a name,
Well, that's awesome. Well, people, guys, everyone go on facebook.com/the Faith Film Festival. And also the website is thefaithfilmfestival.net, or?
It is, and we just got our 1,000th like without even having to advertise. So we're excited. People are gravitating toward the site. So we're pumped, and we think it's going to be, within 10 years, one of the biggest film festivals in the country.
Well, if that sounds like something that you would like to support, go on the Facebook page and click like and share it with your friends. If you're a person of faith and you feel like there's just not enough positive portrayal of faith in the media, go on there and like it, share it with your friends, and that will, help Joseph get the word out, get the festival in action. The more likes, the more fans, because I have a lot of fans, Joseph, that come up to me after shows and they'll say, "Oh my God, I really like you. You're so funny." And I'll give them my Twitter or Facebook, and they go, "Oh, I'm not going to follow you on Twitter or Facebook because, we don't know each other in real life, but I'm a huge fan." Okay, guys, clicking on the following the follow button, that helps us out so much. You have no idea. Corporations that go and look to sponsor, they look at those things. Companies or comedy clubs that look to book me or Joseph, they look at those things. It's very, very, very important. So if you want to support a local comedian, or you want to support, a celebrity, or you want to support someone that you really look up to, the best way to do it is to click on the follow button, click on the like button. It takes, none of your time. It takes 2 seconds, and it really supports that person or endeavor or event more than you can imagine. And, if for some reason they're spamming you or whatever, you can contact them and say, "Hey, I'm getting too much stuff from you, but I would still like to like your page." And even with Twitter, there's options where you can like someone or follow them and not get all their notifications. Or on Facebook, you can like them but not follow them. And so you won't be getting all these notifications from people. So it's definitely a great way to support. And Joseph, where can people find you on Twitter or online, or what's your personal?
I just have Facebook at this point. I've never been quick with technology. I have to be now. So I'm going to start promoting my own personal Facebook page, which is to promote Joseph the artist.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, it's just Joseph at Facebook. You can be one of the first 4,500, which I guess.
Well, we're so happy to have had you on the podcast, and I, wish you all the best of luck with your film festival. It sounds like you're up to big things and positive things in the world, which we need more people like that. Guys, this has been Out of the Box Podcast with Rosie Tran. Out of the Box is sponsored by hugmetees.com. Spread love, give a hug, hugmetees.com. If you buy a Hug Me Tee, you will get hugged. Again, I mentioned my friend Joe, his name's also Joseph, who went to the bank and left with 45 hugs that day before he finished his deposit. So go on hugmeteas.com and get a Hug Me Tea. And as always, we're on SoundCloud, Stitcher, and iTunes. Go on SoundCloud and click on the follow button. We don't have as many followers on SoundCloud as our other websites, and it makes me sad every time I look at it. So go on there. And also don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Funny Rosie. This has been Out of the Box Podcast with Rosie Tran.